Thanks. This is actually, I used to live in D.C., 13 years ago, and I was, last night after I got in, I haven't been back in probably 10 years, and I was walking around the old haunts, and I just was walking around, and I just could not believe, I forgot how young Washington is in the summer. I mean, and then a few years before I even lived here, I actually interned in D.C. I don't think I paid for a meal all summer, so I'm sure there might be a few people here just getting their free meal. I had events morning, noon, and night getting in. It was the best value I ever had when I was in college. Love being an intern. But, you know, I was talking to someone about kind of the young market today and communicating to young. There's a phrase for it. Sometimes it's called the millennials. And they were saying, what do they want? What do they want? They just don't know how to communicate to the millennials, kind of the new generation of worker. You know, the old guard is saying that, you know, they're a little bit more self-centered and spoiled, and they just want it all handed to them on a silver platter now. And I didn't think that that's quite right. They just have a different set of expectations, which blogging and new media definitely play into. You know, here's one way that I think that you can look at where we are today and how we're looking at IBM, kind of the communications paradigm today, kind of how things have changed. From a publishing standpoint, you've moved from professional publishing to self-publishing. Anyone can become a publisher. It doesn't take a month. In 5 minutes, you can go to any of the existing blogging programs and get yourself up and running with a web feed, with tagging, with everything you need to be a fully functional publisher. Of course, when you can do it yourself, that's low cost. You don't need a high-cost way of publishing. You can get it all done on the cheap. So anyone can publish on the cheap. That alone has revolutionized the way IBM is thinking about communications. Of course, the mass media, the audience was mass. Today, new media, it's mass and niche. Now, this chart, I originally had it as just saying new media is niche publishing, but what you're seeing now is that more and more mass media are embracing new media tools. So now you've got the flexibility to be a mass publisher and a niche publisher. Of course, on the engagement, new media is purely active engagement. John was talking about that. David talked about it. That's what it's all about, is being able to actively engage with your audience. The voice, John was again alluding to it. You wanted to make sure you had that individual voice. A corporate voice in new media is the kiss of death. And people have learned that by hard experience. And the whole point of new media is to give people an individual voice. What is the role of someone in the communication space? It used to be that you were publishing. You were trying to get this out. Now you're enabling other people to publish and to talk about you. You're creating a platform and a tool so other people can communicate. And that changes marketing as well. Marketing used to be about advertising your services. Now marketing is about getting content out there and letting the audience engage with it. It's no longer just advertising. So marketing becomes from the advertising to publishing. And then, of course, the wonderful thing, and John just provided a perfect example of that, you can get incredibly precise measurements as opposed to what you were able to do in mass media. So this is sort of what we like to call the new paradigm and how we're trying to navigate through. Let's talk a little bit about new media inside of IBM. A few years ago, about 2004, it was clear IBM had to embrace new media. It was just obvious. It was where it was going. But what we needed to do is we needed to create a safe zone where IBMers could get out and blog, both inside the company and outside the company. And being a large corporation, we started getting reports out from the field saying people wanted to blog. They wanted to blog inside IBM and outside, but they were afraid they were going to get fired. And what can they, they wanted to do it. We didn't want that to inhibit their blogging. So we decided we were going to create a set of guidelines for it. And I think the process that we went to create these guidelines is really a new media case study in and of itself. Instead of having HR and legal and workforce relations sit down and try to write a set of blogging policies, which, again, just would have been horrible, trying to do some top-down policy-driven thing, we said, well, why don't we let the people who want to blog and who are already blogging outside write the blogging policies themselves? Let's see if we can trust them to do it. So we set up a wiki, which is a collaboratively edited web page, and we wrote one thing on the top of the wiki: write IBM's blogging guidelines. And we notified a few of the bloggers and says, let's let it happen. We had no idea what to expect. It was unbelievable. Within days, we had 30, 40, 50 people debating each other on the wiki, starting to write these guidelines. And they would have these offline debates. They would try to work it out. And the guidelines took shape organically using the employees themselves, were writing it themselves. Within 2 weeks, we had what we thought were pretty well-defined guidelines. He says, all right, we're going to have to give it to IBM Legal. We dropped it on the desk and jumped back and see what happened. And 2 days later, Legal said, looks good to us. Next day, HR said, looks good to us. We put it in front of the executive committee a couple weeks later, and the CEO and the executive committee said, looks good to us. So within about 6 weeks, I think the whole process started. Within 6 weeks, from a standing start, we had corporate policy on how IBMers could blog, all from the grassroots, so it had complete buy-in. We never had to worry about how the employees and the people wanted to blog would engage with it. It was really a great story, and it shows how you can trust your audience and trust your employees to do the right thing. Now, inside of IBM, we have about 10,000 blogs. And the connections that are being made on our internal blogging platform are unbelievable. I was saying earlier, we have researchers in our Hursley lab blogging about something they're working on. Hursley's in the UK, something they're working on. And sure enough, another IBMer in Silicon Valley or in Beijing will see that they're working on something similar. Connection is made, values created. It's almost incalculable, the impact it's had inside the company. We moved from that into wikis. After we launched Blog, we created an internal wiki platform. We have 100,000 wikis inside of IBM. That wiki that we used to create our blogging guidelines was really kind of one of our first. Now, as I said, we have 100,000. It's really an incredibly dynamic, collaborative space. Again, when you're a global company, you need that collaborative space. Wikis are the perfect way to do it. As I said, 100,000 inside of IBM.